You're listening to The Secrets of Sacred Art, where we unearth the hidden treasures, history, and deeper meanings in religious and sacred art. We're your hosts, Alix Murray
and Kathryn Laffrey. Welcome to episode 36, Sagrada Familia. Wow. Yeah, 36. In this episode, we'll explore the art, images, and innovations of Venerable Antoni Gaudí and his almost finished breathtaking basilica.
Yes. So the big news is on April 14th, Pope Francis, may he rest in peace, proclaimed Antoni Gaudí venerable after accepting the votes in favor from historical advisors, theologians, and the cardinals and bishops in the Vatican's dicastery of the causes of saints. A venerable is a Christian who, having lived a life by Christian virtues, is a candidate for beatification. Venerable is the second step on the path to canonization after servant of God and having examined the consistent, joyful practice of theological and moral virtues for a significant period of their lives. And so Antoni Gaudí has done it.
He's venerable.
Yes.
I like how they explain that significant period of their lives.
Yes.
There's a little controversy about Gaudí. You know, people try to say, oh, he was, a Freemason or something crazy like that.
Yeah. He
may have started out that way, but from what we've seen, he ended just in love with Our Lady.
Exactly. It's not how you start out, it's how you finish. And right? I'll be honest, thank goodness, right? But I'll be honest with you, I tried to do a good bit of research on that and, to get some more concrete evidence of it. And I just couldn't find anything. I mean, that's not to say that it's not there, but I just, when I'm I was purposely looking for that. And I even looked into some of the imagery and I still couldn't find anything. So, like I said, it's how you end up. It's not how you begin. And
exactly.
So there you go.
So that's the way to go. All right. So please follow The Secrets of Sacred Art in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. For a fuller experience, you can join us on the SQPN YouTube channel where you can see all the images we're discussing on the show. You can find us on social media at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, on X at SQPN, or on Instagram at StarQuest Network. So, the Sagrada Familia. I have to say, I had an interesting visit there when I went with my daughter, Bridget, because we wanted to go to Mass there. We thought that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And especially when this was the first view we had of the Sagrada, as we had taken the train from Valencia to Barcelona. Then we took one of the subway routes, and to get to our hotel, we come up the subway stairs, and there it is. And you're like, oh my gosh, it felt so close. We're just like, no, Mom, that's another subway ride away. That's not what's neat about how big it is.
Yeah.
You actually get that feeling, that, medieval feeling that Pugin wrote about the church should be that big central focal point.
Exactly. And there's also an idea that what you can tell what a culture values by what it makes big. Yeah. And you think about what are some of these skyscrapers all over the world.
Yeah.
They're not churches. They're not cathedrals. They're, finance, sources of, financiers and banking and business and secular government, all that stuff. They're huge. Mm-hmm. But it should be a cathedral. Yes, and you're right. I hadn't thought about that. To go into a city and have the biggest thing there be a cathedral is, it must have been kind of amazing to experience that.
It's interesting that you call it a cathedral, because it's actually not the cathedral.
You're right.
Which is funny. A lot of people actually get that wrong. When you look up Sagrada Familia, half of the sites will call it the Cathedral of Barcelona, and it's not.
Yes.
But I did end up there. So this first picture here, you see there's the Sagrada Familia. And do you see the lines of people at the bottom of the stairs and then up on the porch?
Yeah.
When Bridget and I got there, it was well over an hour before Mass was supposed to start, which they tell you if you want to get in for Mass, you arrive early. And we get there and we're like, okay, this doesn't look too bad. And then as we get closer and realize the line wrapped around the corner of the block. And we still felt like, okay, I think we got here early enough. No, we're in line, and we still had people like well lined up behind us. And the line starts to move to let anybody in for Mass. And then they're like, sorry, that's it. We're full.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
We were 20 people away from getting in for Mass.
Do you know what? I recall the discourse on the wise and foolish maidens.
Yes. Well, thank goodness, unlike the maidens, our lamps did not go out, and masstimes.org works in Spain and Barcelona. And I was like, yes. So right away we looked that up. We're just looking up the trains and subway schedules, and I'm like, Cathedral's got a Mass in 45 minutes. Let's go.
Yeah.
So that's my little subway route there. One train to another train took us right to the cathedral. And guess what? Lo and behold, another basilica. So in this breathtaking basilicas episode, you're getting 2 for 1 here. So
2 for 1 deal.
2 for 1 deal on basilicas. And I think most of everything we saw was a basilica, because even Montserrat, that was a basilica.
That's right. Wow.
Yeah, and don't forget, all you got to do is look for that little red and yellow umbrella.
Yeah, I can see it in this photograph on the right. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the Cathedral of Barcelona. It is the Cathedral of the Holy Cross. It's absolutely breathtaking. I'm not just saying that because that's the title of our shows, but it is breathtaking.
Yeah.
And you could tell just from getting off the subway and then working our way through the very narrow walkway, felt like an alley between the buildings to get to the front of the cathedral. I felt like I stepped back in time, because not only that, but it just decided to downpour all of a sudden. And we were walking in the walkway where all the gargoyles are dumping down buckets of water on you.
Hilarious. Yeah.
We had one tiny umbrella, and we were each soaking wet on one side going into Mass. But it was awesome.
Go. Yeah, I was going to say it's like a little mini baptism for you before you went in.
Right. It was so worth it. We were laughing the whole way. It was just beautiful. So the city of Barcelona has definitely received the light of Christ early on in Christendom, because they had the martyrdoms of Saint Eulalia, and Saint, I said it before, Cucuffus, I think.
Yes.
So, and that was back during the Diocletian persecutions. So way back, 3rd century or 4th century even. And there's already been a strong Christian foundation in Barcelona. And the relics of Eulalia, I think I said it right that time.
Yeah.
Was in one of the chapels of an early church, probably the cathedral still even at that time. And they had to hide them, unfortunately, during the Arab invasions of 7/11. And the primitive cathedral ended up being, damaged severely, but survived when the chieftain did burn down all of Barcelona. And then in 1046, they decided to construct a Romanesque version. And that Romanesque version stood for quite some time. It was under the originally set up under the care of Archbishop Wilfrid Narbonne. And so now, or wait, that's the Catholic, or the Romanesque. And then later on, the Romanesque was replaced by the Gothic cathedral, which is essentially still standing today. It's just been, the facade's been upgraded, but according to the original plan.
So
and
is
all
this,
of this,
sorry, so this has been restored, but it looks the way it would have looked originally. Like this is true to the Gothic.
Not
facade.
restored, but it took gaps in finishing kind of thing.
Okay, nice. It's beautiful.
So, yeah.
Gosh,
it's absolutely
I love it.
Gorgeous.
The tracery is stunning.
Yeah. So the interior main structure and the base of the facade was all finished in the 1060 time period. And then into the 1298 period. So under like King James of Aragon, and it was almost finished by the time of King Alfonso V, but they just didn't have those towers that are up on either side.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yep. But those towers, so you can kind of see here what it would have looked like at that time period under King Alfonso. So those front towers were not completed, but there's all that tracery, all that lovely detail is still there. And then
what
the
a difference those towers make.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, you like, that just shoots you right up. And the beautiful bell tower in the center.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was all part of the original planning from that Gothic time period. It wasn't until 1913 that it was actually finished. And it was thanks to a industrialist, Manuel Girona. And he undertook the work of making sure that it's continued, that it was all inspired by the 15th century project. And sadly, he didn't survive to see it finished, similar to our dear Gaudí. But his children ended up making sure that the work was finished.
Yeah. Well, that again is also like Gaudí. You know, somebody started, he picked up where somebody else left off. And then there are people who picked up where Gaudí left off. So it is, so it's interesting that they've had this experience before in Barcelona with an incredible church and basilica, as you said.
Yeah. And it was stepping back in time, going inside, just absolutely beautiful. The mass was all in Catalan, which was gorgeous. Small group of us, and they had everybody move all the way up to, there was seating set up between the choir that's set up in the central nave. And I highly recommend people go look this up, check our links, because there's some incredible pictures of everything that's in this church. Maybe we'll get to it some other time. I don't know. But even some of the stained glass is original to the Gothic. So there's some stained glass that dates back to the 1300s. And I do believe that even that stained glass in this picture is from that time period. Yeah. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
And
the
organ. Wow. The organ was amazing. We had that for Mass too.
Yeah. What a nice little intimate experience versus going to the Sagrada Familia, where they have all these people going in to Mass. I suppose you could say maybe not everybody was going just for Mass. They wanted to go to the Sagrada Familia, because if that were the case, they would just split off, and half of them would go to the cathedral and half of them would go to the Sagrada Familia.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And it was kind of obvious from who was standing in line and what people had cameras out ready. It's like, no, you're going to Mass. Yeah. You don't want your cameras out. And it's just, if you're going there just to get in free, it's like, you're missing the point. But for me, the intimacy of this Mass was beautiful. Everyone was there to worship. Yeah, it was incredible. Yeah. I mean, you can see the little alleyway in the black and white photo to the left. That dark shack. That's where we got soaked on our way in.
Yeah. One of the things
going in was lovely.
Yeah, I was going to say, one of the things I'd like to point out in this old photograph is when you look at the windows, with those beautiful Gothic arches, and you can see, in our last episode when we talked about Gaudí and how trees influenced him, if you look at the windows and the tracery in the windows, they look like trees. And so you can see how that's part of Gothic architecture, but Gaudí had just moved it in a little bit of a different direction. So it
looks like something from really Rivendell.
It does. Or not Rivendell, Condor as well. Yeah. I was thinking about the white tree, beautiful. Before we head back to the Sagrada Familia, let's take a moment to thank our patrons. And we'd like to take a moment and thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the secrets of sacred art, including Joe B., Mark C., Kathryn B., Dave T., and Victor C. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the secrets of sacred art and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's zip back in time and take a look at the beginnings of the Sagrada Familia.
Yeah, this is really, really interesting. And I should have to say, I should say that just a little bit of insider's baseball, as they say, for our viewers and listeners. When Kathryn and I do the research for this, I don't know how many texts we exchange. We talk every day via text, but going back and forth, and this, and sometimes it can get really exciting. And this just happened to be one of the ones. And so I hope that comes across to all of you. This is such an incredible building, and from its very beginnings to today, it's just. It's incredible what the human mind can do when focused on glorifying God. I think that's the point. Yes. It really is amazing. So the Templo Expiatorio della Sagrada Familia, or the Expiatory Temple of the Holy Family, was the idea of a bookseller, Joseph Maria Boccabella, literate and devoted man who in 1866 founded the Spiritual Association of Devotees of Saint Joseph, whose objective was to achieve, through the protection of Saint Joseph, the triumph of the Catholic Church in a time in which the phenomena of de-Christianization was impulsed by the Industrial Revolution and the accompanying social changes. In 1872, Boccabella went to Rome to make an offering to the Holy Father, and while returning from this trip, he passed through Loreto, where he observed its beautiful church. It was there that he had the idea of making an expiatory temple in Barcelona dedicated to the Holy Family as a replica of the church he saw in that Italian municipality. Beginning in 1876, Boccabella searched for a centrally located plot to build his temple. In 1877, the architect Francesco de Paula de Villar offered to draw up the plans for free. De Villar's project was totally neo-Gothic, a church with 3 naves with a crypt. The first stone was placed on March 19, 1882, on the Festival of St. Joseph. Following tradition, Del Villar included a semicircle crypt under the apse in his project for the temple. and it was the first part of the temple to be built. When Gaudí took over the project, he respected the plans.
Let's take a look here at this little bit
before
we have in the picture. Yeah.
Yeah, before we go on to what Gaudí's done.
Yeah, because we can see Villar's very Gothic, seems to almost complement and mirror what we just saw at the cathedral.
Yes.
And then even his beginning work that he has going up there with the beautiful spires and all that tracery. Even the windows look the same.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, but when Gaudí took over the project, he respected the plans and he kept the neo-Gothic style Villar had designed. But one significant change Gaudí implemented was to dig out the soil around the outer wall of the crypt to prevent dampness and allow light to shine in from the temple ambulatory above and from outside. He achieved this mainly with stained glass windows in the chapels that looks onto the trench, and then by raising the vault that covered the crypt, putting in the windows to let light in. And here we go. So he was really, I don't want to call him a trailblazer because nobody's ever done anything like this again. Do you know what I mean? It's like a one-off. So it's not like he's a trailblazer, but he did some really innovative things that just highlighted and made better what was already in the works, if that makes any sense. So here we've got Kathryn and I were just debating like which one of these dapper gentlemen is Gaudí, but I want to say he's the little one with the beard on the left. I don't know. I think. Yeah, we've only seen him with the little beard, right? I know. I don't know how big he was. Like, I don't know how tall he was or whatever. So I just thought he was this. Of course, it's hard to say, to compare people. These two men could be giants for all we know.
And it's fascinating to see it in this open field. I mean, now you go see it and it is surrounded on two sides very tightly by the city that has expanded. And then on the sides of the Nativity facade and the Passion facade, at least there's a little block of city park to give it a little breathing space. Yeah. It's like it would have been gorgeous to see this thing in the open field just going up and filling the space.
But when you're talking about the city being built up around it now, when you look at the history of medieval cities, they start off with a cathedral. I know this is a basilica, but they start off with a cathedral, and it's in building that cathedral that the city radiates out from that. And so in a way, this is kind of a natural thing that happens around basilicas, a church, or in this case, a basilica, that things grow out, they spring forth from it, if that makes any sense. So it's completely natural that the city starts to radiate out from the basilica.
Yeah, and then it's nice to see how Gaudí is merging his work with his once mentor. They did work together on Montserrat, on the chapel, on that basilica.
That's right.
So to see how well he's able to merge his thoughts and ideas with what his mentor has already begun is absolutely fabulous.
Yeah, he's not coming up with... He came up with something really new, I would say, in the same way that the development of Gothic architecture was new. There was nothing like that before. I think a lot of people don't realize that. But it wasn't this, but it made sense. I know I always say that. It made sense. And so you can see the influence of the Gothic, and then he's just moving it, as I said, in a different direction, in a respectful way, in a really respectful way.
Yeah. And here's some of his innovative work, or practice works, I should say.
Yeah.
Alix, you found these pictures.
I know. These are kind of, really, so what he would do, and we mentioned this a little bit in our previous episode about Gaudí. So one of the techniques that he developed that nobody, to my knowledge, had ever done before. I know, Kathryn, when you and I were studying the development of the Gothic arch, that was kind of based on like a circle that was cut in half and cut in half again. It's just a kind of an interesting way that they developed it. That's not what he did here. One of the things Gaudí really didn't want to do was create flying buttresses, which of course is a very Gothic feature. And what the flying buttresses do is they take all the weight of the stone away from the interior part of the structure, and they kind of push it down into the ground. So that's how these big, beautiful Gothic cathedrals are able to stand. This is what keeps them, it relieves stress on the stone. But he didn't want to do that because he felt like the flying buttresses, they have to be on the outside. They are exposed to the weather, and they could possibly, and they do sometimes, you've got to refurbish them, replace them, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So he wanted to develop an arch that would take the stress in a certain way without a flying buttress. So this is where the innovation comes in. And what he would do is, if you look at the small black and white sketch, I think this was one of his sketches, and he would take sacks of sand or and even little small steel beads or iron beads, and he would dangle them from strings. He would tie a string from one end to another, and then he would hang these bags. And what he found was the string or a chain. Sometimes he would use a chain. They would naturally, no matter where you moved the weight, the chain would naturally adjust itself to the most stable point. And that's how he developed his arches. And I hope I explained that without too much confusion, because I'm not a mathematician.
Very good.
Thank you. I'm not an architect. I'm not a mathematician, but so that's what he would do. And so these two larger photographs that we're looking at, these were actually, these photographs have been flipped upside down. If they were right side up, you would see these chains hanging from the ceiling. One is of, I think it's another church or chapel. That's the one on the left, the black and white one. But the one on the right, that is the Familia de Sagrada, or Sagrada Familia. And so all of this, it's based on hanging chains and ropes upside down with weighted bags of sand. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I have to say, we have so many links in our show notes. And of course, just like last time, check them out, take your time. But MIT actually developed a software program that uses Gaudí's theories. So you can actually kind of create your own arches and arcs and buildings with this software. I forbade myself today to check it out because we're trying to do research. And
one less rabbit hole.
Oh gosh, but talk about really fascinating, Kathryn. I think, the possibilities are endless here. So what he did kind of in the physical world, this software does through data, but this is what was so unique about his arches. So no flying buttresses, they're all stable within themselves, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, which is fascinating because it gives it that uplifting feel. So it's literally like flipping gravity on its head.
Yeah.
But we had talked earlier about Gaudí making that one significant change to his predecessor's work. So this main picture here is the crypt chapel. And you can see the floor plan. And this is a lovely bronze floor plan that they have at the Sagrada Familia for you to see, familiarize yourself with it. So what Gaudí did was, because he didn't want the crypt to be dark and damp, literally damp, in the lower level, digging out those areas, and you can see them in the floor plan, the areas that he dug out to let all that light and fresh air get down. And we had talked about that in our previous episode about Gaudí. He really was about providing that beautiful, fresh, light environment for the occupants of a building. You can see he brought it here to the Sagrada.
Yeah, because you would never guess that this was a crypt. I've been in crypts before. They're pretty damp and dark.
And it was interesting because as we did our tour and we were allowed to go around the ambulatory, and that's what those upper windows are that you see in this lower left picture. This is us looking down through those windows into the crypt. And I wish we could have been allowed to have gone down for Mass in the crypt. That's where I would have preferred to have gone to Mass. But you had to be a native speaker to go down there.
Wow.
And I was couldn't check that off the list.
All the time, or just for Mass?
For the particular Masses that they were offering that Sunday.
Okay.
So it was nope, couldn't go down. But it just looked so beautiful down there. And to me, it felt like the crypt was the perfect merging of Gaudí, his predecessors, and everyone else that's worked on this. So it's like bits and pieces of the Sagrada, sadly, sometimes disconnect you from the intention of the building. It's beautiful. It's a wonder to be in it. But there were times, depending on where you're standing, you all of a sudden have to remind yourself, I'm in a basilica. I'm in a place where the holy sacrifice of the Mass happens. And you can tell, even from the crowd of people there, that sometimes they forget what's really happening,
I think that's something that I don't know if it's always been like that with some places of worship, where people aren't aware, or if it's something that we're seeing because the culture is really changing. When I went to the Vatican and we went to the Sistine Chapel, there were definitely people behaving in a way that would suggest they did not realize they were in a sacred space. And it wasn't that the space itself was kind of indicating that. I think it was just, there were so many people, and the focus was not worship. It is a chapel. And I have to say, I think I've mentioned this before on one or two of our podcasts. There were priests standing on these big platforms, and every once in a while, one of them would say, "Silencio," and everyone would be quiet. But it's like, so they were there trying to remind them, look, this is a sacred space. That you behave a certain way in a sacred space. But I think sometimes you become so overwhelmed by the, it's almost like this basilica is a victim of its own success and beauty. People come and they forget what it is for, why it was built. And they just want to experience the beauty. But, God works with that as well. Yeah. Yeah,
exactly. So another thing to point out in the floor plan that we have here is you'll notice the rectangle that's rather tightly fit around the main body of the church. Gaudí wanted people to have a point of entry that would let them shake off the dust of the world, in a sense. He brought the cloister tightly around the church so that people could maybe stop and walk in silent prayer around the church. Sadly, when we were there, it was not completely open. They have the ability to section parts of it off. They'll use it for catechism classes. They'll use it for lectures. It has different functions now, but it would have been neat to have been able to do a rosary walk all the way around the cloister before actually stepping in. And the other thing that's different, which I think is now impossible, at the what would be, every church has liturgical east where the altar is.
Yeah.
So at what would be the liturgical west entrance, where the long stairs are at the bottom of the picture, there's a road that runs right next to the front of the building now. And I don't think that those stairs and that entry is even possible as it is drawn here. It might still be possible, but we weren't even able to go through the doors there. They had them closed off for construction at the time.
Yeah, there's still so much going on, so much construction going on. It's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, so they actually used the nativity side as the main entrance for all the visitors and when you arrive for Sunday Mass, if you get there on time. And this is what greets you. There is so much to look at.
There's so much going on, yeah.
You get your ticket, you walk up the little windy stairs, you get onto the porch up there, and you just go, wow. Yeah. What is all of this? And you start looking, and then you start noticing little things. And it reminded me of what we learned about iconography and how there's all those little details that just keep drawing you in. It doesn't push you away. It gets you closer and closer. So.
Yeah, I love the palm fronds at the top of those pillars. What are those Salomic pillars? I'm just remembering that from one of our other. Does anybody remember what that is? A Salomic pillar? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's
beautiful.
You look at it and you feel like it was almost frozen in time. Like you feel like everything should start moving.
That's what I was just thinking. It looks like it's alive. Yeah, like a moment in time, but everything's moving really slowly.
Zoom in a little closer on your pillar.
Yeah, look at that. Wow.
We actually heard a few people, I think there was a guide that told us that some people think that all of this is like actual people that were, plaster casted, and that was what made the statue. Or that's how the palm was there. It was so just funny. All plaster, it's like, I think it was carved. So.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. I guess I've seen bricks, like where you can brickwork that's like kind of put together and it looks like it's carved. But this, I think that's what's so stunning about this. This is all carved. The craftsmanship required to do this. Again, we were saying, you can have all the vision you want, but you also have to have people who can execute this vision, not a 3D printer.
And I love how just in this front entry part, and this was the only part that Gaudí worked on, like physically, got to like see and work on. And he actually had decided that he knew he wasn't going to, live long enough to see this finished. I mean, churches like this, and to the level he wanted to take it, was going to take decades, if not longer. And so he wanted to have one completed facade so that his predecessors, anyone who was coming after him, would know exactly what he had envisioned. That this is what I wanted. And I love how, just looking at this image on the left side, you can see how he incorporated a very Gothic window into all of this that seems so new and innovative. And you even see the influence of Montserrat with the way that we have like these cave-like finishes on the edges of things.
Yeah. And all of the rosaries everywhere, it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And I do love all the, the angels and it just keeps going and going and going. It's so, as you said, Kathryn, it really draws you in. It really draws you in.
And I have to say, I highly recommend, and I will keep forever, my Sagrada Familia app that we had to download in order to purchase our tickets. And I will keep it forever because there are booklets and other bits of history and information in this app. And you can also just look at the website. We have links to that give you so much information. And it was refreshing for me to know that all that information was there, so that when I was visiting, I got to just be there. We decided
you already
not to do a guided tour. Yeah. We just wanted
some
to
of the
soak
information
it in.
Under your belt already. That does help.
Yeah. And sometimes, even if it's a new place for you, if you have the opportunity to just, first time you go, just take it in. I mean, it was hard for me to take pictures because I wanted to just take it in, but I knew that I wanted to share this with all of you. So I took lots of pictures.
No, good for you. You're always, you're good at that. I'm terrible at it.
So the last thing that Gaudí would have seen was the bell tower dedicated to the Apostle Barnabas. And this is from the booklet. They give it a beautiful layout of all the bits and pieces of this facade that we have here. So the bell tower to St. Barnabas is the one all the way to the left of the 4 tallest towers there. I actually got to go up in it, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Highly recommend
this is the one with the gorgeous, I guess the birds, like the doves. I love that. Is that the
doves on the tree at the top?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that. I love that.
Yeah. So again, get onto the sagradafamilia.org, look at their booklets. Absolutely amazing things to see. And I love how they break it down so you can see, okay, here's the 3 wise men. Alix, I thought of you right away as soon as I saw the 3 wise men, because I know you want to do an embroidery project or something.
With the,
with the 3 wise men, yes.
Oh, yeah. Fingers cooperate, please. Yes, absolutely.
And then down in the lower left corner below the symbolism of the facade, the little list there, you have the flight to Egypt, and the little donkey was just so sweet. And they had someone guiding the donkey, and St. Joseph and Our Lady just sitting there so peacefully. It was so adorable.
I know. He liked animals, I think. When you look at some of the animals that he designed, you can't do that without observing through eyes of love.
Yeah, I mean, he loved the trees, he loved the animals. So here we have what Gaudí would have seen finished. So in 1925, there's that tower finished. That would have been one of the last things he would have seen. And I mean, just the heights that he brought that to, it seems so strange to see this one facade standing all by itself with just a little bit of the crypt below and the apse.
Yeah. So, and talk about a man of faith. You know, I mean, he had designed in his mind something. This is not even a fifth of what the basilica is. Yeah, and I also love how these towers, kind of halfway through, these columns just seem to be stretched. Again, I love that. I love that. Like they're reaching up. It's beautiful.
And it's so fun to be in that section of the tower, because you're expecting it to be super open, but it's not, and it's not scary. It's absolutely beautiful, which is probably why, unfortunately, during the Spanish Civil War, this was kind of left to ruin. So much of Gaudí's work was damaged, destroyed, sketches lost. I mean, the only stuff they have was what was in publications somewhere else. So
oh wow, oh gosh,
yeah. But what happened when construction wasn't actually underway? Because it's so open, people would just go up and go through there and get lost. there are a lot of different ways to turn and stuff like that. So they eventually had to, you can't, no more self-guided tours, folks. We're going to tell you where you can go up. And thank goodness they have installed a very amazing elevator. It just rushes you up to the top of one of the towers. Then you get to explore up a little bit before you work your way down.
Okay. That's nice.
Very nice. Yeah. But
Not
the other
like
picture
Durham
here,
Cathedral, huh?
Oh gosh, that was a lot of stairs, Alex.
I know. Think about the stairs on this one. Wow.
Oh, these were a little smoother, not so tight. But anyway.
Yeah.
So on our right side here, we have what's called the Portal of the Rosary. And this is also what Gaudí himself would have seen and worked on. And thankfully, he had a lot of incredible sculptors working with him. So Matamala worked on the original sculptures. And he has Isaac, Jacob, David, Solomon. You have Our Lady with her rosary holding baby Jesus with St. Dominic and St. Kathryn. And, all the roses laid out. And it's just a beautiful grouping to look at. And I think, Alex, one time I had shared this picture with you and you're like, it looks like a love letter to Our Lady. And it absolutely is. To me, this is my favorite part of the Sagrada.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so many elements in it where if you're Catholic and you're interested in sacred art, you just pick out you're like, oh yeah, I see this. I get all of it. Thank you.
Yeah. And much of this was finished by 1899. So finished before the tower obviously got to its peak in 1925. But sadly, this was also damaged during the war and had to be rebuilt, though, by a very amazing Japanese artist, Etsuro Soto. And if you get the chance to look him up,
I put his website in our show notes. He's amazing. His story is amazing.
Yeah,
he really, you can tell that he loves Barcelona. He loves the basilica and he loves Gaudí and he loves God. You can tell all of that from his work. One of the things I wanted to point out, Kathryn, and you can tell me because you were there, it looks like these crowns, or maybe cupolas that are above each of the saints at the bottom of the door. Do they spell out Maria? They look like they might spell Maria.
Oh, I'm trying to remember if that's what. I know there's a lot of words spelling out everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember if those, because that's the other thing is you'll be looking at something thinking it's just a beautiful tracery or something, and then you realize, oh, that spells out Gloria, or that spells out Jesus. And it's just kind of, I loved how he integrated that, because again, that points back to iconography with the importance of putting the name on the image.
Yes.
And so, I don't remember if those spelled out, but it does look like it, doesn't it? So
it does a little bit. Yeah. That's why I would love it if it would make sense if it did. Yeah. It would be fitting if it did. Oh, wow.
So a little, once you finally get yourself off the porch of the Nativity and actually go into the building and let yourself stop looking at all of that, this is what greets you. This forest of columns, and they just seem to just shoot up from the floor. That's where you get that feeling that, there's no gravity pushing down on any of this. It just floats.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard people use that, the word float, to describe what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
It's
it does seem so different from what you just walked through. That I go, wait, is this really what Gaudí wanted? But But
yeah.
guess,
Well, we were talking about this because and when I first saw this, I was like, this really just looks very different. But then in doing some research, these columns were based upon the plaster molds that Gaudí himself had created. Mm-hmm. And so the one that looks like it was a sphere, and somebody just like took a knife and just like carved out little bits around it. That was his. And
that's like he was the knots in the tree image that he liked so much.
Yeah. So I think it does look like a forest. It looks like, Kathryn, if you've ever been in a forest and you look up into the trees and then the sun shines down kind of in dappling the forest floor. Mm-hmm. But if you look up into the trees, it really does look like that.
Yeah. You can see the light streaming through from the windows. And it's fascinating how one side is warm colors and one side is cool colors.
Yeah.
So it's an unusual bathing of light. I mean, I've stood in front of really good stained glass before, but to see how much light comes through is just like you're going, is there shining a light out there also? But no.
Well, it's sunny Spain, and but he was really a master of light. He was a master of light and a master of air, I think.
Yeah. Now, there's one other feature in the right-hand photo. If you follow the columns all the way to the end, you see this little corkscrew of a staircase.
I see it, yeah.
I love that the staircases are exposed. I mean, I love a hidden stairway. That's one of my favorite architectural features anywhere is little hidden staircases. To see these things exposed just gave you a more real sense of the height as you imagine what it would be like for someone to go up that staircase. That would be going into one of the bell towers.
Yeah.
So
it's amazing. I wonder how many steps that is, though. I bet you'd get your 10,000 in.
Oh yeah. I mean, what's crazy is those things spiral pretty tightly, but then there's a couple grand ones that are wider that just do this big, long, lazy loop up. And there's actually, I don't know if it's in one of these, but yeah, you'll just kind of see. This is looking from standing at would have been like the front entry door toward the altar. And here's where you have the baldaching over the altar with the crucifixion. Yeah. And then all those little lamps hanging down. And the baldachin has Gloria in Excelsi Deo written around the edge. It's done all in glass, even the fruit hanging.
That's what I was going to say, is that fruit hanging down. Wow. And it's a really, and I'm just thinking about how you were saying everything is lifted up, and then you have this crucifix, and that seems to be lifted up as well. Oh, how neat. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Gaudí made it a point to actually align the altar, the baldachin, the dome above, the tower above that, all with the crypt down below. So there's just one big, huge upsweep from the altar.
Yeah. No, it's really, and what I can see, is that a little bit of the organ on the the right hand side? Yeah. Wait, we're talking about the organ in the basilica, or the cathedral. See how I'm getting things mixed up?
I know.
Yeah,
they both have beautiful organs.
Yes. Yeah.
But then again, this is looking toward the side where the windows are, the cooler colors. I didn't get a good enough picture of it because it's hard to get the camera to focus. But there'll be every now and then names on the stained glass.
Okay.
So it'll be like Old Testament names, New Testament names. That's for along the nave. And then just very loose almost impressionistic glass in a sense.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's really beautiful. And I have to say, when I was looking at doing some of the research and looking at these pillars, the images, I guess they're like lamps in the little globe, the things that are illuminated in these pillars. And from what I read, they are images of the four Gospels, but they're designed in a Catalan style, and then they have light from behind. So it's really interesting how he's incorporated this, and it just the stone really looks like it's alive, doesn't it? The tops of it, like the branches, for lack of a better word, and it looks like you have these big fronds of these leaves hanging down. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and it's interesting. If you look at the tiering on the left-hand side, so just about 6 to 7 feet above the height of the floor, you have this first layer. So you see like the tall, like the windows, you have like the people's heads, then there's this little rail, and that's a section where people could sit if needed.
Oh.
And then you go above that, and there's this huge, like, stadium slanted tiering of seats.
I see that now. Yeah, yeah.
And that can all be filled with people.
Wow.
So just layers all over the place. And I love this almost castle-like in the right-hand image, those tiers and layers. And there were actually, like, spots up there you could see when you do the tower walk, where someone could sit way up there if they needed to, or if they had a dignitary or something.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I see what you mean.
Mm-hmm. And just to show what it looks like when it's full, this is from November 7th of 2010, when Pope Benedict XVI consecrated the basilica for religious worship and designated it as a minor basilica. Now, early on, the crypt chapel was, constantly they were having masses in the crypt chapel early on. But here now, you have the whole thing in use, functioning, and you can see people sitting on the ledge. And if you look carefully, you can see them even way up top. And then these huge bronze doors.
Yeah. Wow. Full of words, which, oh, wow. How brilliant, Alex. Yeah. It's full of words.
It's full of words. Those are letters. Yeah. Those are words.
Exactly. But because they're open, you only see half of the words. So it's hard to see what's going on.
Yeah. It's fun when you can pick out certain things like Nostra and
Gloria
or
Yes, exactly.
And then, Alex, you found this picture.
Yes. And this is of the, is it the Holy Spirit chapel?
God the Creator.
Yeah. I mean, look at this. I mean, you're talking about the cool colors and the warm colors. And I'm sure all of that is made with mosaic tiles, correct?
Yeah, they say Venetian glass and gold.
Oh, wow. Beautiful. Yeah.
And the big triangle is supposed to represent the Trinity.
Okay. Yeah. It's so gorgeous. Did you see this when you were there? I mean, there's so much to look at, but do you remember seeing this?
It was funny because when I saw your picture, I was like, wait, how did I miss this? Then I had to look through my pictures to realize, oh, that's when you look up from the altar and see this then above.
Oh, so you would not, unless you went up on the altar, which you're not going to do. So
no.
It's really beautiful. What a beautiful thing for the priests to look at.
Yes.
When they're celebrating
So after
Mass.
you walk through the church and you look at all that color and beauty, and then you step out onto the opposite side, and you have what's called the Passion facade. And there's been a lot of controversy about this one.
Yes, there has.
Yes. So we have two pictures here. The black and white is Gaudí's original sketch. And Alix, you found his quote for what he wanted here.
Yes. So when Gaudí made this sketch and he was planning out the Passion side of the basilica, which of course is on the opposite end of the Nativity side, he said he wanted it to be harsh and cruel and made of bones. And so you can really see that. And, and so when it was designed by Suberak, that was, he kind of took that in a different direction, but it wasn't meant to be something pleasant and soft and lovely. It was to make you feel welcome. It was supposed to be stark and shocking, just like the basilica.
Yeah. What's nice is the app does have a full booklet about the facade, which will help kind of break down all the different elements. You can see the slight variation in the layout that Suberak did, where instead of the crucifixion being down low and almost just above the height of the people that would be walking, he moved it up almost 2 levels. And it's interesting to walk out into the story of the Passion as it's unfolding. But at the same time, sometimes it's hard to take, because this is probably the first time I've seen a fully naked crucifixion.
Yeah, that was something that, I do know that historically the crucifixion Christ would have been completely naked. And it's out of dignity and reverence that he's not presented like that in sacred art. And so, yeah, I don't know what to think about that, because the cloth is there to give him the dignity that was denied him by by the crucifiers. So I'm not quite sure what to think about that, among other things. And actually, when Suberak was given the commission to do this, it was very controversial. And it's still controversial, because it just is such a break. It is a real break from Gaudí's aesthetics, for lack of a better word, and when Suberak designed it, he purposely wanted to make sure people knew it wasn't Gaudí who had done this design.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. When you think about it, Gaudí didn't sign his name to the cathedral. Do you know what I mean? He was doing this for the glory of God, and it just happened to be he was using what he loved and what he saw in nature to create something beautiful for God. And I don't know if that was Suberak's motivation, if I'm going to be honest. He did it in his style, and it very clearly is his style.
Yeah, like we saw, here's some close-ups. Like we saw with Gaudí originally working with what Villar had started. Gaudí didn't completely abandon the neo-Gothic influence, but worked with it. And here you can see very different style from what we saw on the Nativity side, where everything's a little blocky, intentionally left all rough cut, almost unfinished looking.
Yeah,
so it's interesting. I did end up buying, in the left-hand image, all the way to the right, you see a close-up little block-headed man looking very sad, and that's Peter when he denies Christ. The rooster helps explain all of that.
Yes,
Also, thankfully, there are a lot of stones all around every section of the Passion side that give you a scripture verse.
So you know where you are. Yeah.
Yeah, what he's illustrating here. And so just seeing Peter just so distraught, like he knows he blew it. And I love Subarak's sketch that he did, because I felt like I actually got to see maybe what the intent was, that there was, a bit of himself in Peter. I don't know. It was hard. It was very interesting. It was so strange. Yeah. I'll post a picture on the Discord community of the sketch that I bought.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
There's a softness and a sorrow that doesn't necessarily come across in the stone.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting you say that, because one of the articles I was reading about him, there were so many people who were outraged and upset, and they were so critical of him and what he was doing, but he persisted in finishing his vision, and still I don't think people are necessarily pleased with the results. So I think there was probably he said, he was asked about this, like, what do you think about people, the criticism that you're receiving from people? And he said, well, my job is to press on and finish this. And he did. And even in finishing it, people were not happy with it. So it was a really, in that way, I really do feel for him, because, when you're creating something as an artist and you put it out there and people criticize it, it hurts, Yes. It really does. Constructive criticism is great. We all need that. But, when people criticize and they don't offer anything better, and they're just angry with you that you've kind of, if they're accusing you of betraying Gaudí and Gaudi's vision, that's got to really hurt, Yeah. But it is what it is. It's interesting to see what will happen with this over the years. Remember when the glass pyramid was put up in front of the Louvre, and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, what a monstrosity! What a stupid idea!" And now everybody wants to get their photograph taken in front of it. So who knows?
And it's funny that you said that, because the one thing I noticed right away between the two facades was who spent more time in front of which facade.
Yes, that's always fascinating. Yeah.
So there was definitely a difference in the crowds in front of each facade. And this facade had a unique crowd of people.
Okay.
Some of them looked like the lost sheep.
Yeah.
Some of them looked like, okay, see, this is so goofy. It was just a real interesting mix of people out there. And then there were some that were like, okay, lamenting that it doesn't seem to fit with what else was there, but at the same time taking pictures,
Yeah, yeah.
So it was very fascinating just to see that difference between the two sides.
I think a lot of times it's interesting to see how people interact with sacred art. And I have to say this, sorry, if you're hearing a lot of rumbling around, my dogs have broken into the room.
Oh, okay.
Gosh. I'm like, people are going to be thinking, who is this heavy breathing? What's the heavy breathing behind you? It's the dogs. Oh, gosh. But, that just tops off the day. Do you know what I mean, Kathryn?
You know what, though? But it fits in great with what we want to talk about next. And that's all these great natural details that Gaudí loved to put into his work.
Yes, that's a great, what do you call it? Transfer or whatever. Thank you, Kathryn.
Yes. Because there I have to say, that's the only picture I didn't get a good one of. There was a dog on the Passion side who looked so distraught. And he's sitting there next to some soldiers, those little paws hanging over the ledge. But it was like, okay, that was probably one of the best fits with Gaudí's love of nature that I saw out there. And I was like, okay, there's something there that can fit together. So let's look at these. What do we have here?
So these were actually, so these are the ripe fruits or fruits of harvest. One is representing the wine or precious blood. These, so by contrast, these were finished and designed or sculpted and finished by Soto, the Japanese sculptor. And as I said, look on his website. You'll just spend a lot of talk about a rabbit hole. And this is, you know, they're beautiful. And you can tell this is, I won't say it's like, we shouldn't say this is Gaudí's vision. This is clearly part of what is simply the Sagrada Familia. It is, there's a continuity, there's a wholeness here that Soto has accomplished that I'm just going to say it. I don't think Subarak did. I think, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
he got close. And it's neat because there's actually some really great information about all the different finials on top of the spires, any little spike here or there, the bell towers are just fascinating to look at. And to have the different fruits, there's harvest fruits, there's fruits that have, you know, symbolic meaning, like we have this chalice and the grapes here.
Yeah.
There's even wheat shafts. There's even critters
there's some
and
almonds.
things.
Almonds,
yep.
Yeah, so fruits from the area. Yeah, so here we have wheat, and you have the Eucharistic host that's made out of the wheat, and then you have another chalice with grapes for the wine. And I love the color. That's the other thing. Yeah,
the color, and then getting that tile that just reflects the sunlight is fabulous.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then this is what we were talking about, the birds. And I have to say, when I found this today, I told Kathryn, I really want to put the turtle in. I love this turtle. I'm currently, this is like my latest obsession, reptiles, especially terrapin, tortoises, turtles. Yes. Oh my gosh. And when I saw this, I was like, yes. I don't know what meaning it has. I mean, there are turtles in the Mediterranean. Maybe that's what it is. But I just love him. Look at him.
Gaudí was using a lot of the Mediterranean creatures, like the turtles and lizards and frogs and things like that, especially as gargoyles to redirect the water down from the roof.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of fitting, all these beautiful sea creatures.
Yes. No, I just love it. I just love him. And then these doves in this tree. Look at this. It's just, it looks like they're just bursting forth from this.
And from a distance, it just looks like a Christmas tree. It's just so like inviting.
Yeah. And it's like, I guess it would be like a cedar tree, maybe.
Yeah,
it does kind of look like a Christmas tree. And of course, it's topped with another dove. I mean, it totally looks like a Christmas tree. But it's just, it's almost like what I love about the colored tiles mixed in with the natural stone that they quarried from the area is it just adds life to it. It really does. Life and movement.
And the other little picture there, you'll see that arch behind that's helping to support the towers and that tree. That's a walkway. And so,
how neat.
A little picture I posted there is what it's like to look at the back side of the tree out onto the city.
Oh, yeah. Oh, how cool. Could you touch the tree? Or was it too high?
It was out a ways from that walkway. You can kind of see there's like support structures that adjoin the tree to the walkway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. How cool. Yes.
And then,
these are the doors. These are the doors to the nativity side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or is this another side, the nativity side?
Nativity side. So you walk in through those central doors with the pillar in the middle.
Yeah.
And it's hard to not stop. Everybody's going in behind you and you just want to stop and look at all of this detail.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And again, these doors were designed by Soto. And again, it just is, what's beautiful about this is it's consistent, and if you look at his artwork, you can see where, I'm talking about on his website, you can see where he's, it's his artwork, but he's definitely, he's not in any way contradicted Gaudí.
Yeah. It just merges with it. Here's a close-up that I took.
Yeah. This is so beautiful. Door.
This was the one we
took these photographs?
Yeah. So this was standing in front of the door. It was myself and 3 other ladies. We're all waiting for people to go by so we could take our picture. Then we took turns so we could get right in the center of it.
Yeah.
But when you get close and you zoom in, and you look, and there's a little frog and a toad and another little turtle and a bumblebee, and it's like
exactly.
Crickets.
Yeah. Do you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of the Ghent altarpiece. You know how we were saying, what you want to do is you look at this sacred art and you think, gosh, I could be in here forever. I'm always discovering something new. And that's what you see here. And those beautiful irises, the ones that haven't bloomed yet and the ones that are fully open. Yeah. There's always something to look at. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's nice about the Sagrada Familia. It's definitely a place you can come back to and still discover something new. It's fabulous.
Oh, way. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, what's next for this thing? So, this picture right now is an enhanced photo that they did so that you could see what it will look like when the Jesus Tower reaches its full height. And that's the tower in the center. And there's a nice little key here to look at to give us an idea of what we're seeing. The Jesus Tower is going to reach a height of 172 meters.
Wow.
Right now we have the 4 gospel writers. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were recently finished and lit up. Same thing with the Mary Tower, and she's just slightly higher than the gospel writers.
Yeah.
And then all around, the other bell towers complete out the 4 or the 12 apostles. So it's just breathtaking in height. And then the different finials that they place on these, to coordinate. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John have their symbols that go with them: the lion, the angel, or not angel, face of a man, angel kind of thing, the eagle, and the ox. And so it's just amazing to think about.
It is. It is
reaching.
I know, it's incredible. And I have to say, I did include in our show notes an article about the building of the Mary Tower, because the Mary Tower is a series of ever decreasing size and then sloping in M's. And so the company that built the structure of it, this article is fascinating. It talks about how they were stress testing it. They did some 3D prints of it. And because they did all of that, they were able to use, again, local stone that had been quarried. And but it's incredible. There's so much meaning in every square centimeter of this building has meaning. Yeah.
And you can see here how the glory side, which isn't complete yet, and it looks like almost trumpets blaring down from heaven.
Yeah.
That's the side that would have had that big long porch entry.
And
but you can see how there's those buildings right across the street.
Yeah, so those just need to be knocked down, right?
Yeah, I like that.
I'm sure the people living and working there probably have a different opinion.
Yeah, slightly.
Yeah.
And then it gives you a good idea too from this vantage point. And I highly recommend give yourselves a flyby, 3D, Google Maps. Oh my goodness. It is fascinating. I actually made myself like a little dizzy of heights almost when I flew over the open Jesus Tower that isn't finished yet. And I did this on Google Maps, and then once you pass over it and it just drops off on the other side, you get that little bit of I'm really high up feeling. It's funny.
You're dipping your tummy or whatever. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So funny.
But you can see also from that vantage point the way that the cloister wraps tightly around the actual nave of the church, and you get that walkway imagery.
Yeah. Lots of work to do before 2026.
That's the goal, right? They want it to be for the 100th anniversary of Gaudí's death.
And possibly his beatification.
Oh, possibly. Wow. I don't know, Alex, we might have to go.
I know. Oh my goodness.
So I did look at, and again, the Sagrada Familia website is fabulous, but they have a special event going on right now at the Sagrada, and that is a display of the Shroud of Turin. Not the actual shroud, but they have very large photographic representations. And I've seen one here in Michigan where it's from the largest Kodak image ever printed in high detail of the shroud.
I've seen it as well. It might have been the same one. It was years ago, but I remember seeing it. It was really incredible. Yeah.
But they also have with it the Man of the Shroud sculpture, which is taken years to complete to get that 3D rendering done. And then there's also a Cross of Hope that is a bronze sculpture, shows Christ overcoming death. And so it's just beautiful. That's going to be, if anybody happens to be in the area now through Christmas in Barcelona, go check it out.
Absolutely.
Get yourself all of this incredible view plus the shroud. Why not?
Yeah, that is amazing. And in terms of the shroud, oh gosh, that's a fascinating subject to talk about. But I think it's worth going. Like I said, we went years ago to something where we it was like a tour of it, and it was really, really well done. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, well, we want to thank everyone for listening to the Secrets of Sacred Art on StarQuest, and to find any previous episodes of the Secrets of Sacred Art and to send feedback, please visit sqpn.com/sacredart, and you can send us comments by email at sacredart@sqpn.com, and leave us a comment on YouTube, or visit our channel on the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. And we always love to hear from people and have fun discussions on Discord, of course. And we'll be back next time, and hopefully less chaotic on my end.
Oh, wow.
Next time. Oh my goodness. Yeah, just two.
Well, I just realized I forgot a couple images of the tower walk, and I think I'll just put those on Discord. I actually have a fun little video of me going down the last sections of stairs that gets a little tighter and a little smaller.
Okay. Yeah. Well, like I said today, Kathryn and I, along with all our texts about the show, we were like, today is insane. But anyway, so this was like a nice, we're just, you know what, this is kind of like friends getting together. And some days, we all get together and things are a little bit crazy and hectic, but we're glad to be with all of you. And we're going to be back next time, as I said, and we're going to take a close look at Caravaggio. I think we have a lot of people who are waiting to hear from him. We've had lots of requests about him. It's going to be Caravaggio, Lost and Found. Until then, I'm Alix Murray.
And I'm Kathryn Laffrey, hoping you find something beautiful.
Bye-bye.